Finding Batman.
Finding Batman by Kevin Conroy. Exactly 3 years ago, I ventured into an audition for a character I knew little about in a medium I had no experience in. His flaws, humanity, his overcoming life's challenges, his having a public face and a private one, all these characteristics resonated with people. I often marveled at how appropriate it was that I should land this role. As a gay boy growing up in the 1950s and 60s in a devoutly Catholic family, I've grown adept at concealing parts of myself, putting aspects of myself in a separate box and locking it away. Perhaps I'd outgrown them, I hope. Perhaps I could change, I prayed. This was only in the 1970s. Stonewall had just been an event in the evening news. The thrill of watching gay men fight back was tempered by the ridicule they received in the press. Better to wear a mask, I thought. At the same time, my family's situation was deteriorating. With a wildly alcoholic father, a schizophrenic brother, and parents divorcing, it all came to a head when my father was found in the woods bleeding to near death in his car from a self-inflicted knife wound, an empty bottle on his side. Not being able to face him after what he'd done, my mother sent me to the hospital in her stead. With no family support to rely on, I had to get a scholarship to any school I hoped to attend. Juilliard offered that opportunity. The competition was fierce, any flaw or weakness magnified. An attitude settled in for me that I was on my own. After school, I went through the standard struggle of any young actor in NYC, various survival jobs, multiple auditions. I began to book regional theater jobs on and off Broadway, all the while aware that the business, through people with gay agents, producers, directors, and writers, was very unforgiving towards gay actors. In order to work, the mask had to be fixed. But I refused to spend my life alone, just to falsificate a career. So while I would not deny who I was in my private life, I kept it quiet professionally. Of course, nothing says secret in theater, so word got around, especially when I played a few fairly high-profile gay roles. Just as I began to feel comfortable in my skin, I started to hear stories of actors I knew developing a rare form of cancer, purple lesions in their skin, debilitating pneumonia, and ultimately death. These previously strong, energetic men seemed to disintegrate overnight. I hoped it wouldn't affect me. After then, friends began getting it. My agent, his assistant, actors I knew and admired. Funerals became common. A whole generation of men, my generation, was suddenly at risk of contracting what became known as AIDS. What had been unthinkable suddenly became my new reality. Then came an unexpected and embarrassing moment. I've been shooting a miniseries on location. One night after a very long and difficult day, we gathered at the lobby bar of our hotel. The place was packed. As I walked in, one actor, who'd obviously been there for a while, announced to the room in a booming voice, "Hey, it's the get in here and join us." What to do? Laugh it off? Confront it? Decided to ignore it. "I got an early call tomorrow. Just wanted to say goodnight." Discomfort on set followed and eventually passed. But I would always be other no matter what I did. Years later, a real eye-opener happened. For 3 weeks, I've been shooting a film in a gritty downtown neighborhood of LA with a grueling schedule of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I was excited about the character, a man who slowly devolves over the movie, becoming more and more unhinged. The challenge was not just getting into the head of this man, but also to portray his disintegration while shooting the script entirely out of sequence. If I had dissected my script into different stages with distinct colored pages and pens, one color for his physical injuries, one color for his psychological state of disrepair, one color for his emotional life, another for his wardrobe disintegration, with notes for what had immediately preceded each scene, so I knew where I was coming from. And that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. You've been terrific. Hey, Kev. Hope you don't mind. Took a peek at your script. Fascinating stuff. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I needed a roadmap to track. Sure. Look. What are your plans after this? He said, there was a TV pilot he's been working on, buddy cop show. He felt I was perfect for one of the leads and wanted to know if I could stay in town in case the network wanted to meet me. But he wouldn't know for a couple days. I needed to visit the East Coast fairly soon. But since I was sort of on my own schedule, I told him, okay. I called my brother Chris the next morning to explain that I was delaying my trip. I tried to reach the elusive producer one last time. I decided if he still wasn't available, I'd just head back to Chris. The phone clicked, the producer's voice came on. Hey, how you doing? That gut punch again, like in the bar so many years before with the drunk actor. So we're not going to need you. I went then there and pitched you, and man, the reaction was not what I expected at all. I mean, wow, there's a lot about you I just didn't know, honestly. You could have warned me before I got my ass handed to me. Look, just a heads up between us. You can't forget that network. They'll never hire you for the lead. So have a good trip. Good luck, okay? I was completely stunned. I was lost. I just sat staring into space, staring into the void that spanned 20 years. 20 years since I moved to NYC as a 17-year-old to start my acting career at Juilliard. The 20 years I've been fooling myself that I could ever compete in this business, that I could have a public and private life. The 20 years I'd wasted thinking about anything more than just another faggot. It wasn't easy to maintain a house back in Connecticut for my brother to live in while I worked regularly in LA. But it was a house we grew up in. My father had left it to me to look after, for Chris and I acted as his caretaker. It was an ideal way to keep him out of the hospital and on his meds. He loved living in that house. Thankfully, he had a wonderful psychiatric social worker named Jerry who would check on him. Things only broke down when Chris went off his meds, which was not uncommon. 3 days went by and I still haven't heard from my producer, so I called his office and left a message reminding him that I was waiting. The next morning, I tried the producer's office again. I was fine with nothing coming of this. I just had to know where I was free to leave, but he never returned my call. Later in the day, I went to visit a friend in the hospital who was in the last stages of AIDS. He was casting director who'd always championed my work. We were exactly the same age and grew up just a few miles from each other in those middle-class suburbs in Long Island. Both from Irish families and Catholic schools and drawn to the theater, parallel lives that haven't intersected until LA. Now I was part of a group of friends that I took turns by his bed as he drifted into clouds of dementia. He had written a play about being gay and living with AIDS in Hollywood. One of us had gotten the idea to tell him it was going into production and needed him to direct us. We each assumed a role and pretended we were in his rehearsal for his production. I went to Connecticut the next day. I put up seeing Chris for long enough. When I got to the house and rang the bell, there was no answer. I rang again, nothing. I had a key, but tried to respect Chris's sense of privacy by letting him answer the door. Nothing still. So I opened the door myself, and the thick smell of cigarette smoke enveloped everything inside. Chris? Huh? Who's there? Who's there? Chris, get up. Come on, man, get up. What? Get up? Who's... It was all about Nixon, and Alkerman. Screw you, I felt something within me snap. The way he hissed those words just tore through me. I called the psych ward, called Jerry. It would be complicated, but it was time for Chris to be admitted back in. Then I got a call from my voice-over agent about a new series at the WB, Batman, the animated series. I walked in and met the creative team of Bruce Timm, Andrea Romano, Eric Radomski, and others. They talked me through the character, explaining how young Bruce Wayne had seen his parents murdered in front of him in Crime Alley, how he had formed dual personalities to deal with his agony of his childhood, a mask of confidence in the world, and a private one racked by conflict and wounds. Could I relate to that? They asked. Let me just try to get into the head of the man and see where I can go. I imagined myself as a young Bruce witnessing my parents attacked and crumbling in front of me. I saw them lying in their blood in the filth of Crime Alley. I saw my own father lying drunk in a pool of his dried blood. As Bruce, I held them, comforting them in my arms. As Kevin, I cradled my bloody father as he struggled for life. As Kevin, I held Chris, cradling him as he raved at the voices plaguing him. As Bruce, I felt disoriented and lost, not sure of my identity as my parents were cruelly yanked from me. I felt disoriented and lost as an actor whose identity was being yanked from him. Was I My public face or my private face? Had I made too many compromises? My heart pulsed. I felt my face flush. My breath grew deeper. I began to speak, and a voice I didn't recognize came out. It was throaty, husky, rumbling sound that shook my body. It seemed to roar from 30 years of frustration, confusion, denial, love, yearning. Yearning for what an anchor, a harbor, a sense of safety, a sense of identity. Yes, I can relate. Yes, this is a terrain I know well. I felt Batman rising from deep within. The end.